What do you call it? Huh? Working? Is it working now? Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Sorry about it, there was a problem with the technical issues. We'll just continue. I'll just repeat in quick what we discussed about so far. I didn't know the audio was not there. Okay. So we just begin the link between the previous chapter and the current chapter. So Krishna, Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur is pointing out that the fruits of the Ashwatha tree of samsara had not been described in the last chapter after mentioning them. The Lord in the 16th chapter describes the fruits of the tree, which are of two varieties, those which cause liberation and those which cause bondage. And Srila Sridhara Swami, he points out that Krishna concludes the chapter saying that one is a buddhiman, is intelligent, one who accepts the service of the Supreme Lord, or one who accepts the process of devotional service. He is the intelligent. So then he says in the 16th chapter, so knowing this, one becomes wise and accomplished for all his duties, O Bharata. Now, who knows this truth and who does not? Who is the person who is aware of it? Who is not aware of it? That is discussed in the 16th chapter. And then Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan Prabhu, he says, in the 16th chapter, Krishna speaks about the natures of the saintly and demoniac persons, teaching that the first type is excellent and the second is despicable. Describing how the roots of the Ashwatha tree spread out, the Lord explained that the fortunate and unfortunate impressions caused by previous karmas were the secondary roots of the tree of samsara. In the 9th chapter, the Lord narrated that the natures of living entities was either Daiva, Asura or Rakshasa. What Krishna says in the 9th chapter, do you remember? What is the verse he's referring to? Mogasha moga karmano moga jnana vichetasaha Rakshasim asurim chaiva prakritim mohinim shrita. Krishna speaks about it in the 9th chapter, right? So that's what here he's pointing out. So the Daivi nature having sattva attitude and pious impressions causing performance of duties according to the Vedas is suitable for liberation. That is the Daivi Sampat mentioned in this chapter, the excellent fruit of the Ashwatha tree. The natures of Asuras and Rakshasas in the modes of passion and ignorance, which are causes of all evil, following the inclination for attachment and repulsion, filled with sinful impressions, causes these people to fall to hell. This is the Asura Sampat, the undesirable fruit of the tree. This is the purpose of the 16th chapter. Okay, so now we will see the divisions of this chapter. In the very first 6 verses, Krishna speaks about the divine and the demoniac qualities. Verses 1 to 6. First 3 verses specifically deals with the divine qualities. In fact, Krishna speaks about 26 qualities, the divine qualities, which should be practiced specifically by devotees, specifically those who are in specific varnas, for sannyasis, for grihasthas, for brahmacharis, for vanaprasthas. Is giving specific qualities to be acquired. Then verses 4 to 6, he begins speaking about the demoniac qualities. And then further from verses 7 to 18, very specifically he points out some of the demoniac qualities. Then verses 19 to 20, he speaks about the destination of those demons, those who possess these demoniac qualities. What is their destination? That is being discussed. Then Krishna goes on to explain, so what is the proper conduct? How one should conduct his life? It should be based on what worldview? What is determining the worldview? When we say worldview, the practice, the culture, the customs that we follow, it should be based on what? Should it be based on our mind, or should it be based on our some opinion of some people, or it should be based on what? How it should be formulated? That is discussing. Those 3 verses at the end is also very important. And Krishna also is pointing out in one of the verses the 3 gateways to hell. One of the also coming under the demoniac qualities. But he says, royal road to hell is accomplished by having those three qualities. So how we should avoid those qualities, he is discussing. Okay, so we will begin the chapter with the first three verses today. We will try to cover some more verses. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Abhayam Sattva Sangshuddhir Jnana Yoga Vyavastitihi Danang Dhamascha Yagnascha Swadhyayas Tapa Arjavam Ahimsa Satyam Akrodas Tyagah Shantir Apaishunam Daya Bhuteshvalo Luptvang Mardhavang Rir Achapalam Tejakshama Dhriti Shauchang Adroho Natimanita Bhavanti Sangpadham Daivim Abhijatasya Bharata. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, fearlessness, purification of one's existence, cultivation of spiritual knowledge, charity, self-control, performance of sacrifice, study of the Vedas, austerity, simplicity, non-violence, truthfulness, freedom from anger, renunciation, tranquility, aversion to fault-finding, compassion for all living entities, freedom from covetousness, gentleness, modesty, steady determination, vigor, forgiveness, fortitude, cleanliness, and freedom from envy and from the passion for honor. These transcendental qualities, O son of Bharata, belong to godly men endowed with divine nature. Now, if you just count the number of qualities, it comes to 26 qualities. It starts with Abhayam. Now, Prabhupada, at the beginning of this purport, he gives this point, which we already discussed in the introduction, about the auspicious and inauspicious activities. So, auspicious activities are guided by the Daivi Prakriti. And then the inauspicious activities, whenever we engage in inauspicious activities, we are influenced by the lower modes of nature, namely passion and ignorance. So, Prabhupada is pointing out that. So when we perform activities according to the scriptural codes of conduct, that helps us to fix us in goodness, and then further above from goodness we make progress. And then those activities which are demoniac or the inauspicious activities that are rooted in passion and ignorance. From passion it glides down to ignorance. So Prabhupada points out, for those who are acting in the modes of passion and ignorance, on the other hand, there is no possibility of liberation. Either they will have to remain in the material world as human beings, or they will descend among the species of animals or even lower life forms. Remember when we were discussing in the 14th chapter, there was a point that we discussed. Some people have a conception that if we are in the human form, we will never glide down. But we also knew that those who are influenced by the lower modes of passion and ignorance, or somebody may be in goodness, it's not that he will always be in goodness. It depends on the kind of association that he is taking. It depends on how he is practicing, what he is eating, what he is associating with. That determines his consciousness. So, anytime one can fall away from the path of, from the mode of goodness. So, it's very important for us to know what kind of association that we are in. And so, this is a very nature. Anytime we can glide down to lower modes. So, that means when we are hovering on the lower mode platform, that is all inauspicious qualities. Now in this verse, if you see, Krishna is discussing about Abhayam Sattva Samshuddhir. He begins with that. And there is an important word that is being used. If you see, Abhijatasya. Prabhupada, Krishna at the end is speaking about that. You must know that these qualities are born of a transcendental nature. Daivim Abhijatasya Bharata, Krishna says. So Prabhupada translates it as these transcendental qualities, O son of Bharata, belong to godly men endowed with divine nature. Divine nature means we can say these qualities belong to whom? Supreme Lord. Krishna possesses all these qualities. So from him, all the qualities, it comes, all these qualities. So Prabhupada points out. The word abhijatasya in reference to one born of transcendental qualities or godly tendencies is very significant. So now we are speaking about qualities that are born, that are innate in some person. Now how is that? We discuss that. Doesn't matter whatever may be your birth, but what are we doing now? That very much matters. Yes, that's true. And also we can see certain people are naturally or divine. Why? Because their Prabhupada is going to discuss the entire thing about the kind of birth they are into, the kind of because of sad yoni. Krishna already discussed that, no, in the 13th chapter. Sadasad yoni janmashu. Krishna discusses. Karanam guruna sangosya sadasad yoni janmashu. So, if one is coming out from sad yoni, so naturally he is expected to exhibit saintly qualities. But then also there are cases. It is a more favorable situation. Absolutely, there is no doubt about it. When one has a good parenting, certainly the boy or the girl may have good samskaras. Because of that, naturally they will exhibit saintly qualities. But, if the association is wrong from beginning, even one may be, the parents may be very saintly, but he may turn out to be an asura. Are you able to remember any character immediately from Bhagavatam or from any Purana? Very easily you can remember. Who? Narada Muni is a saintly person. Previously, of course, he's not a demon or something like that. I'm saying one is very demoniac. Okay, so I would not put him in that category. Okay, I'll just not to spend much time on this. Narakasura. Remember when we were reading this Varaha Lila, everybody was surprised. How is that? He was born to Bhudevi and Vishnu. How is that he was exhibiting? Because he took a wrong association. He took the wrong association and he completely developed demoniac mentality. Well, there are so many people in Kali Yuga we can see. Sorry? Yeah, I mean, he was coming in the demoniac family. He was speaking about someone who is born in a Sat family. Because of a bad association, they turned into demons. Okay, anyway. So we're coming back to this point. So here, the whole discussion is all about abhijatasya. So the kind of samskaras one they get at the birth. So Prabhupada very much discusses about it. We'll also discuss about it. To beget a child in a godly atmosphere is known in the Vedic scriptures as garbhadhana samskara. If the parents want a child in the godly qualities, they should follow the 10 principles recommended for the social life of the human being. Very interesting. Prabhupada discusses about the 10 principles. In fact, what are these principles? There are so many principles that are described in the scriptures about in the Dharma-shastras and other places it is described. Of this, as Prabhupada is pointing out here, one of the very important samskaras is the Garbhadhana samskara. So the Vedic culture is considered to be a very topmost culture, that before the man and the women come together, why they are coming together, why first of all there is an institution of marriage, everything is very scientifically defined. Because the goal of life is determined. The goal of life is not to enjoy this material world. The goal of life is to purify our existence and then go back to the abode of the Lord and be situated in our constitutional position as the eternal servant of Krishna. So now, every one of us are conditioned in different way, and also the scriptures are offering us various methods. There are varnas and ashramas that are given to help us to overcome whatever difficulties we have, so that we can bring our mind and our body, our senses back to the service of the lotus feet of the Lord and absorb ourselves in His service. So one may be a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, or one may be out of any of these 4 varnas, or one may be a brahmachari or a grahastha or a vanaprastha or sannyasi. The varna doesn't matter, the ashrama doesn't matter, but one has to develop the transcendental qualities by coming in association with appropriate personalities or the right personalities, or to tell in simple terms, we have to come in the association of Daivi Sampat. So who possess the Daivi Sampat? The devotees possess the Daivi Sampat. Now in that, parenting becomes a very important role. So let me just open about the different samskaras that the scriptures speak about. There are actually, to be called a Brahmana in Kali Yuga, the scriptures explain about 48 samskaras. There are 10 principal samskaras we will discuss. We'll discuss means we'll just go through it. So nowadays in the modern age, people are not worried about uh, the importance of proper samskaras. They themselves are not cultured. They're just like they're just thinking that it's a complete demoniac propensity. Life is just meant for enjoyment. They don't bother what they eat. They do not bother what to whom they are associating with. They do not bother what they're watching, what they are discussing. So life is based on satisfying the senses. So such kind of a life will lead to bad progeny. That's why so many asuras will be born. So that's why Arjuna's concern about Varna Shankara is well appreciated. So now, so Prabhupada speaks about, the scripture speaks about difference of Garbhadana Samskara, even so after the marriage. So an appropriate time and the consciousness before begetting the child is also fixed. So that the husband and wife, they pray so that a good child will come into that family. And also the marriage system is also very amazingly disarranged in the Vedic culture, that we see the husband also before he gets into the married life, he's not just whimsically he engages in practice of Krishna consciousness, or he just his life is based whimsically. His life is very much organized. He actually, even before entering into the family life, he prays, he approaches the guru, he approaches the well-wishers, and he leaves a responsibility with the parents, and all he seeks is a good partner who will help him in his endeavor to go back home, back to Godhead. And also similar thing with on the girl side also. She is also trained very nicely by the parents, very cultured, trained on the principles of Sri Dharma, and all good qualities are being trained into. They're being trained into being submissive right from young age, and also understanding the principles of being the girl in young age, being protected by the father, and then while getting married, being protected by the husband, and when later being protected by the son. So all they are being trained into this culture, and also we can see such a marriage ceremony with the guidance of parents and in the association of people who are in good standing in society. Such a couple will be very exemplary couple, and the children that they are born to them will also be very nice, and also they will. It's not that the child is born and then they will just leave them like that, but they take adequate care to see that they are properly trained. So and Garbhadana Samskara plays a very vital role in that. So Srila Prabhupada points out, if the parents want a child in the godly qualities, they should follow the 10 principles recommended for the social life of the human being. So here Prabhupada points out. So what are those? So Garbhadana Samskara. So in the traditionally, there are various rituals that is being performed before the husband and wife they come together. If you see in the Satkriya Saradipika, there are so many rituals that is being mentioned. And specifically in ISKCON, we can see Srila Prabhupada what he advised. I'll just want to quote you a letter where Srila Prabhupada gave a personal guidance to the devotees. Where Srila Prabhupada wrote a letter, His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj wrote on behalf of Prabhupada, when a devotee asked a question about how to beget a child. Prabhupada writes here. My dear Madhusudan Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. I beg to acknowledge the receipt of your letter dated May 4th, 1977. I discussed the contents of your letter with His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada stated that our grihasthas should simply chant 50 rounds before conceiving a child. Prabhupada said, we do not want all these rituals. Chanting Hare Krishna is our only business. According to the Manu Samhita, you are all mlechas and yavanas. You cannot touch the Manu Samhita. What to speak of translating it? So if you try to follow the Manu Samhita, then you become a mlecha and yavana, and your career is finished. I hope this makes the matter clear. Hope this meets you well. Anyway, so the point here is that Srila Prabhupada is explaining that The samskaras are very important. We cannot drop down the samskaras, but the most important thing that we do is we chant the holy names of Krishna. Husband and wife together, they chant 50 rounds. And they pray. And if you see in the Satkriya Saradipika also, the prayers are offered they invoke the mercy of the Lord. We pray to the Guru, we pray to the Vaishnavas, we pray to the Lord to send proper child. So what is it? Basically we are preparing ourselves. Our consciousness is prepared. In fact, you can see, even before doing puja, even before doing cooking, any service, first of all, what we are doing, we are preparing our consciousness. If we are in good consciousness, then the output or the result of our activity and the way we approach the activity will also be very good. And the result will also be, by the mercy of the Lord, it will be a good result. So that's the process. So that is what, by the Garbhadhana Samskara, that is what is happening. And also you can see Srila Prabhupada in one of the programs in Australia, he was speaking about Urdhva Retashaha. He was giving a very solid lecture on Brahmacharya and the principles of Brahmacharya and how one should follow the principles of Brahmacharya. And after 25 years, if one is a very strict Brahmacharya, all these things Prabhupada was discussing. And at the end of the class, devotees were very disappointed. Somehow, the rest of the devotees were sitting. And Srila Prabhupada said that, but nothing to worry, you chant Hare Krishna, everything will be all right, Prabhupada said. Prabhupada said, everything is there, the potency is there in the holy name. So simply by chanting Hare Krishna, Sarva Siddhi Hoy, we will get all the benedictions. So we should not take this chanting of Hare Krishna to be a very light process. It's a very powerful process. Very sincerely we approach the chanting the holy names of Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. There is nothing more sublime than this. So that sets our mood, that sets our consciousness. That's why the whole Bhagavad Gita discussions that we have, the whole Bhagavatam discussions we have, everything is to increase our faith in chanting the holy names of Krishna. That's the bottom line of our entire discussion. So, yes. So, Prabhupada, he explains further. In the Bhagavad Gita, we have studied also before that, sex life for begetting a good child is Krishna himself. So now, Dharma viruddho bhuteshu kamosmi bharatarshava. So, Prabhupada also elsewhere, he makes the point that our process is not something very dry. In our Krishna conscious movement, there are many family people. Family men are there. So it's not that sex is condemned. It is allowed, but it is restricted. Specifically for progeny, proper progeny. So that is the understanding. So we will see some more samskaras. So we can see how the Vedic culture is so much scientific, how there is a meaning behind all the activities. Not that the great sages yes? Yes, it is suggested that we have to follow this. Yes, this sanskaras are traditionally it is being followed specifically in all the varnas you can see, Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, the sanskaras are followed. So Prabhupada specifically said for the Garbhadhana Samskara there are some rituals, but in the ISKCON what we do is we chant 50 rounds of the Hare Krishna mantra. This is what is being done. And and also there is so we will just see what are the different, how it is. I'm just quoting these samskaras for us to understand that how traditionally, what a scientific system that we have, how the culture is so amazing. The Vedic culture was so amazing. We can see that some of the so-called scholars, philosophers, and other critics, they point out that Vedavyas is a caveman. What a nonsense it is. You can see what a high-class culture, the high-class people were following the instructions of the scriptures, and how much their qualities are, what a great quality people were there in the Vedic times. That we can see. So Pumsavana is even after the conception, a ritual is being performed. By that ritual, a male child can be determined. There are some rituals which will determine after the Pumsavana also. So this is also very scientific. It's a big science. So there is Simanto Nayanam, there is a parting of the hair, and then for the safe delivery, there is a ritual, Shoshayanti Homa. Then Jata Karma, after the birth, there is then Nishkramana, the first outing. Namakarana, the name giving there is a ceremony of name giving for the child. Then there is a Paushti Karma, there is a nourishment. Then Anna Prashna, the first time the grains are given to the child. Then Karna Veda means then there is piercing of the ears are pierced with and then they are given whatever you put earring or whatever, small one, you just put that. And then there is Chuda Karna, hair cutting ceremony. Both are sometimes at the same time. Then Vidyaramba, the child, the first time The child goes to the school, to the Gurukula traditionally, that was there. And then now also then there is a Upanayanam ceremony that happens. Then when the student is being graduated from the school, then there is Vivaha ceremony. So there is, for everything there is ceremony in the Vedic culture, Not that you just lead life like nothing. You just, right from beginning days, I asked, what was that? Child is born, because on a Saturday evening, both of them, they took a bottle of wine and then the child is born out of that. What? And actually there will be demoniac, it will be a demoniac outcome. So many rituals are there. All these rituals are meant for purification. That is the whole point. Okay, so let's go back to the purport. So Prabhupada says that those who are in Krishna consciousness at least should not beget children like cats and dogs, but should beget them so that they may become Krishna conscious after birth. So what's the point? The point here is that the parents take the responsibility. So those who are before coming to Krishna consciousness, we may not know. But after coming to Krishna consciousness, we understand that Krishna consciousness is a very serious business. So we are responsible for our children also. Gururna sasyat, svajanona sasyat, pitana sasyat, svajanina sasyat. Daivam satatsyan, daivam na tatsyan, na patascha shishyan, and namochayedya samupeta mrityum. Namochayed, this is a very important thing, that all the dependents, we should help the dependents to come out of the birth and come out of the cycle of birth and death. So that is the whole key point. Life is not simply to enjoy here. That's not the life. The life is we take responsibility of. So marriage ceremony means what? Taking responsibility. Now what is the demoniac civilization? What it is trying to do? They're trying to kill this whole idea of taking responsibility. Just lead life whatever way you want to lead life. Nobody wants to take any responsibility. That's why so many crazy ideas are there in the modern age. The husband and wife, they want to get married, but they don't want children. Why are you getting married? Or they are having ideas of living relationship, and then it's so many things we can talk about. And then also there is another thing that we see that in the modern age, what is the great power of women? The shyness is a great power. Amazing, one of the purport in the Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada points out what is the power of women. Women can control men, but what is the great power that they have? They have the power of shyness. By shyness, they can conquer men. See, I'll just like to show the quote, very interesting quote. How the modern civilization is killing, the demoniac propensities are killing the life of innocent people. You see here, Srila Prabhupada points out, as far as women are concerned, they are accepted as the power of inspiration for men. As such, women are more powerful than men. Mighty Julius Caesar was controlled by Cleopatra. Such powerful women are controlled by shyness. See what Prabhupada writes here. Therefore, shyness is important for women. Once this control valve is loosened, women can create havoc in society by adultery. Adultery means production of unwanted children, known as Varna Sankara, who disturb the world. This is coming in the section of Bhishma's instruction. Bhishma giving instruction to the Pandavas. Very interesting point. So that whole Vedic culture is designed in such a way that women are protected very nicely, and they can impart such a knowledge to the children. They can be a great support to the husband. In fact, the whole culture, the whole progeny and the entire culture is based on their character. So and also we can see that they get all the knowledge. They get all the knowledge from their husband. And you can see they're well versed. They knew the scriptures. That's why you see that they are the first gurus for the children. Mother is the first guru. She teaches everything, all the basics. The language, how her body language, the way she speaks, and she's submissive to the husband. And then immediately the child also becomes submissive to the father, and then the father is submissive to the guru. Guru is submissive to the Lord. So the entire chain is maintained. So it's such an important thing. So it's in Krishna consciousness. We have everything is so nicely planned. In fact, it's a planned procreation also, that is based on Krishna consciousness. All in the modern age, all because of the modern civilization, demoniac civilization, they have all modern ideas, and then the whole idea of uncontrolled birth, whole idea of contraception, all leads to demoniac tendencies. So specifically as practicing devotees, we should know this culture and we should be responsible enough. See, at least at the end of the day, we will know that, okay, I did my job. We do not know what is the outcome. Children are there. We are trying to follow the instructions of Krishna, Guru, and the Vaishnavas. So we have done our job. We have given our best. And it is up to the child's previous karma and how sincerely he is taking up the process of Krishna consciousness. All those things matters. So at least from our side, we have done the job. So it's a very responsible role. So we regularly read and hear and associate with devotees. Then we will also become fired up. Once there was one devotee who asked Prabhupada, how to become sincere in Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada gave the example of, he showed a person, who is a drunkard. When you associate with drunkards, what will happen, Prabhupada said? You become a drunkard. Similarly, if you associate with those devotees who are very serious in Krishna consciousness, naturally you will become Krishna conscious. Okay, we will continue. There is a lot more can be said and spoken, but this is the principle behind it, that what is a life? Life based on dharma. So dharma means what? Following the codes of conduct of the scriptures. So, as Prabhupada points out, we don't lead life like cats and dogs. We follow the descriptions of the scripture. So, abhijatasya, it's a very important phenomenon. That how one can be leading life in daivi sampat. The daivi prakriti, one can be like, okay. So here Prabhupada further explains about the importance of varnashrama dharma principles. So for a society to be peaceful, one should be educated on the principles of varna and ashrama, Prabhupada points out. The qualities mentioned herein are explained as transcendental qualities meant for making a person progress in spiritual understanding so that he can get liberated from the material world. So these qualities will help one to purify his existence. This is the whole point, The whole point, we speak, Vedas means what do we say? Always we speak about sacrifice. Sacrifice for what? For purification of our existence. That's the whole point. So all these qualities, all these principles are mentioned so that we become practice. Then we continuously try to practice and we purify our existence. This is the whole point. Now the different qualities that are being discussed, as I explained to you in the beginning, it deals with the different varnas and ashramas. For Krishna begins the discussion with abhayam, fearlessness, which he specifically speaks about sannyas ashrama. One should be fearless. The proper points are, for a sannyasi, the first qualification should be fearlessness. Because a sannyasi has to be alone without any support or guarantee of support. He has simply to depend on the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If one thinks, after I leave my connections, who will protect me? He should not accept the renounced order. Right? This is the whole point. Who will protect me? Who will give me shelter? What is my bank balance? Then that means that you are disqualified to take up the sannyas. Because you see, when one takes up sannyas, for him, Paramatma is the guide. He has completely taken shelter of Paramatma. In fact, in the sannyas ceremony, there is one, I'm not able to recollect that verse now. There is a Bhagavatam verse which speaks about how one completely leaves everything. He takes full shelter of Krishna. That's one of the verses that is being chanted in the sannyas ceremony also. Maybe in the next class I'll look for the reference and let you know. So he says, after I leave my connections, who will protect me? He should not accept the renounced order of life. One must be fully convinced that Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in his localized aspect as Paramatma, is always within, that he is seeing everything and he always knows what one intends to do. One must thus have firm conviction that Krishna as Paramatma will take care of a soul surrendered to him. I shall never be alone. One should think, even if I live in the darkest regions of a forest, I shall be accompanied by Krishna and he will give me all protection. That conviction is called abhayam, fearlessness. This state of mind is necessary for a person in the renounced order of life. We can take the example of, quickly we can take the example of Namacharya Haridas Thakur. When he was in the cave, who was with him? There was a python with him, a snake, yeah. He was not bothering, he was chanting Hare Krishna. You cannot imitate, they are Paramahamsas, they're great personalities. So, that is their great level. And he had only one concern he had. Some of the saintly people, they are not able to come and meet me because of this snake. Now, because he felt, he had the desire in his heart, there is communication through Paramatma. The snake felt, maybe, I I should leave this place because it is a disturbance for this great sadhu. So the snake left the place. And these are top class personalities. Anyway, the point here is abhayam, fearlessness. That's why, is that we cannot artificially jump into this particular ashram. This ashram, we should purify our existence. Whatever we may try to do, this ashram, if we try to jump artificially, it will end up in miserable fall down. So the point is that we will not be able to sustain. It will either you progress or you break. That's what will happen. So it will be this is a parameter to check how much one is ready to take risk, how much one is fearless. Okay. Sattva samshuddhihi. So sattva samshuddhi, this is a key point here, So as we were discussing even from beginning from 13th chapter, 14th chapter, 15th chapter, and all this discussion, what is the whole thing? One has to come from the lower gunas to the sattvic platform. So by knowledge, by developing saintly qualities, one should always fix his consciousness to be in sattva guna, isn't it? If that is not the case, then that is the platform from which we can rise above. We will glide down. So here, again, another point is being spoken about for the sannyasis. He has to be pure. Consciousness should be pure. Purity should be maintained. Purity is the force. If we are not pure, then we will glide down. So here Prabhupada immediately gives the example of a quality for a sannyasi. Sannyasi is strictly forbidden to have any intimate relationship with a woman. He is even forbidden to talk with a woman in a secluded place. Lord Chaitanya was an ideal sannyasi, and when he was at Puri, his feminine devotees could not even come near to offer their respects. They were advised to bow down from a distant place. This is not a sign of hatred for women as a class, but it is a stricture imposed on the sannyasi not to have close connections with women. This is the standard that is being set. Now that everything is very free and moving and talking, so always a distance is maintained. We could see when Srila Bhakti Saraswati Thakur wanted to discuss with one of his disciples. The disciple she was almost like granddaughter. But still, he said that I cannot meet you privately. No. Whatever you want to discuss, you discuss in the public forum. That means his disciples were there, others were there. You cannot talk privately, he said. That was the standard for the sannyasis. So for a sannyasi, intimate relations with women and possession of wealth for sense gratification are strictly forbidden. So also we can see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to teach to the entire world about the principles of sannyasa ashrama. What he did, he actually completely cut off his relationship with Chota Haridas. He sent Chota Haridas out of his company for not a big fault on his side. So recently his Holiness Bhakti Vikas Maharaj, he was explaining the whole point. What was that? He was trying to find something he wanted to find. Always the point is that whenever the Lord wants to show to the whole world what is the highest standard, whom he will take as an example. He will always pick up his devotees. So actually he was explaining that Madhavi, she was quite elder. It's not that Namacharya, Chota Haridas was, he saw her and then he had, so he says that probably there was some other young girl who was there next to her. And in fact, he might have had a very, very slight glance, that's all. But he made it a big issue out of it. He said that, I don't know, everybody was coming and then begging and falling at the feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Please give him a chance. He's such a dear devotee, such a sincere devotee. He said, no. Better let him commit suicide. And he committed suicide. But then he came and always he was coming and singing about Krishna. That's a different point. But what is the point Srila Prabhupada is trying to make here? He said that it is a very serious ashrama. One should be very strict in association with women. There is no question of lethargy here. No question of concessions here. So Prabhupada is pointing out. For Lord Chaitanya said, for a sannyasi or anyone who is aspiring to get out of the clutches of material nature and trying to elevate himself to spiritual nature and go back to God, for him, looking toward material possessions and women for sense gratification, not even enjoying them, but just looking toward them with such a propensity is so condemned that he had better commit suicide before experiencing such illicit desires. So these are the process for purification. Of course, Srila Prabhupada said that was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's standard. But if Srila Prabhupada if he wanted to have such a standard, very difficult for him to, in the West, for him to have such a standard. Because the whole culture was free mingling of men and women. So Srila Prabhupada had concession, but he never compromised on the principles. But he did teach all the principles. But then he also allowed men and women to. There was also in the West, in the beginning days, there were also ashramas. Even in some places, even now there are there, but still strict principles are followed. Other day we discussed about the principle of butter and the fire. So it works at any time. And this is so one has to be very careful. So that is the whole point of discussion. We will discuss some more important roles of what are the roles of women, how the women needs to be cultured, how they need to train themselves, and what are the gender issues. We will discuss in another important verse where Srila Prabhupada is also again speaking about it, about the qualities of pravriti and nivriti. We will discuss about that. So we will go to the next quality, jnana yoga vyavastitihi. So this is an important aspect. What is the important aspect of a sannyasi who is engaged in? He has to study the scriptures. He has to be well versed in the scriptures. He should use his energy in knowing the conclusions of Siddhanta and giving this knowledge to the people and train them in Krishna consciousness. And very interesting point here, Prabhupada he makes out, humility is also one of the qualifications of a transcendentally situated person. And out of sheer humility, the sannyasi goes door to door, not exactly for the purpose of begging, but to see the householders and awaken them to Krishna consciousness. That is the duty of a sannyasi. Very interesting point, right? He is not taken sannyas simply to take honor one big plate of Mahaprasadam, every day. You get big plate of that is not the job. That is not what he's looking for. He's ready to travel from place to place. You can see in many places in the Bhagavatam. You can also see Shukadeva Goswami, such a great caliber personality. He goes house to house, and what he will just directly drink little milk from the cow's udder, and then what was his business going there? Simply to help the family people, to awaken them in Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada also in one of the purport, he points out in Gita purport, he points out that why the devotees are wandering to different parts of the world, simply to help people save from a conditioned state, save them from ignorance. They give them Krishna consciousness. That's why they're traveling. Sometimes it's very bad. Sometimes people. There was one critic who was so much he was criticizing. Some of the sannyasis, they're having laptops. They're traveling in the flight, in different flights. So the point is that you try traveling and then you see how it's not so. Changing time zones. You just keep changing the time zones, and then your diet changes. Then the climate changes. So much changes are there. It's not some fun actually. So traveling like this, and also not that you are very young. In 20-25 years itself, there's so many complications are there nowadays due to the influence of all the processed foods and all kinds of chemicals and other things. But for those who are very elder and those who are above 50 and 60, traveling is not an easy job. So we have to understand. But why they're doing it? They're taking pains to give Krishna consciousness to others. So, and also we can see very nicely the traditional culture. We can see right from the Bhagavatam, we can see an example how Nanda Maharaj was inviting Garga when he came. There's a nice verse I would like to share that. So he is immediately glorifying the position of a saint or specifically a sannyasi. What is their business? He's pointing out. Okay. So he's saying that, oh great sadhus, your very important business of coming to this material world is to give Krishna consciousness. So when Garga Muni came, that is the verse. So he says, Mahat vichalanam dranam grihinam dina chetasam nishayasaya bhagavan kalpate nanyata kuchit. So he says that, oh my Lord, oh great devotee, persons like you move from one place to another, not for their own interests, but for the sake of poor-hearted grihasthas, householders. Otherwise, they have no interest in going from one place to another. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 8, Text 4. So this is their main work. So this is the Prabhupada, he summarizes here. A sannyasi or one in the renounced order of life must be situated in fearlessness, sattva sangshuddhi, purity, and jnana yoga, and knowledge. So these are important characteristics of a sannyasi. Now he speaks about here, now set of instructions begins for the householders. Charity. The householders should earn a livelihood by an honorable means and spend 50% of their income to propagate Krishna consciousness all over the world. Thus, a householder should give in charity to institutional societies that are engaged in that way. So this is an important principle that, as Srila Rupa Goswami points out, 50% you should give for propagating Krishna consciousness, 25% you should keep for emergencies, and 25% you should give for relatives, like that. So this is one of the principles that is being pointed out. We will discuss more about this charity in the 17th chapter. Further Krishna is discussing. But we should understand what kind of a charity we should be engaged in. Not we just give money for anything and everything. Okay, and then that becomes charity in the mode of passion, and there is also charity in the mode of ignorance. We should know for what right cause we should give charity. And also, we do get reaction from if we give charity to a wrong place. We do get reaction from that. And immediately sometimes people come up with very smart questions. They asked, once they asked Jayadvaita Maharaj about this question, what about we give for a right cause, right people, charity, and they misuse it? Said that you don't have to bother because Krishna knows your sincerity of purpose. Right? So you can understand from the person who is asking the question is that he doesn't want to give charity, so he's asking all kinds of crooked questions, But of course, also that is also there. People have misused, but there is no problem on the person's side who has sincerely given. But also there is also another approach to it. Somebody is going to misuse it, and don't blindly give. That is also there. So okay, coming back to the point, the main point is we should give charity, and charity should be for the right cause. That should not be forgotten. The tamas, self-control. Yes, that's now we discussed. So self-control needs to be entertained. One should restrict his senses. Specifically, Prabhupada is pointing out here. He says, if he does not require children, he should not enjoy sex life with his wife. Modern society enjoys sex life with contraceptive methods or more abominable methods to avoid the responsibility of children. We already discussed this. This is not a transcendental quality, but is demoniac. If anyone, even if he is a householder, wants to make progress in spiritual life, he must control his sex life and should not beget a child without the purpose of serving Krishna. If he is able to beget children who will be in Krishna consciousness, one can produce hundreds of children, but without this capacity, one should not indulge only for sense pleasure. This is what Srila Bhakti-śāstra Saraswati Thakur said. That's the point here Srila Prabhupada is giving. So the principle is very clear that dharma viruddha bhuteshu kamosmi bharatarshaba. Sex is allowed for the purpose of procreation and in a dharmic way. That should be done. And then everyone, specifically family people, they have to engage in yagyas. Panchamaya Maha Yagyas are being discussed. But what is a practical yagya to be performed in Kali Yuga? If you remember in one of the purports, Prabhupada says, for family people to come out of the entanglement, Prabhupada gives a simple formula, simple suggestion. What he says, together in the family, morning you come together and engage in kirtan. Read the Bhagavad Gita. Then evening, he says, evening, again, you sit together and then read the Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavatam and chant, sing Hare Krishna. Such a family life will be very peaceful family life, he says. So the best sacrifice recommended in this age is called Sankirtana Yagya. The Sankirtana Yagya, the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, is the best and most inexpensive sacrifice. So there is no smoke, no tears, only tears of bliss. You get tears of bliss. Okay, then Swadhyaya. Prabhupada speaks about the study of the Vedas, specifically for brahmacharis. So this is actually specifically Swadhyaya is now for everyone. Even Grahastha, Panaprastha, Sannyasi. Not that we are retired now, we don't have to read. Everybody should read. Otherwise, we will be in Maya. So specifically, that in the Gurukula education, what is the main business, as it is said? When you come to the Guru's house, you have two main business. One is study and service. Nothing else you have. Only these two principles. Study and service, and you control your senses and mind for these two. So you are ready to do service. So only reply what you give, yes sir. That's one Bhagavatam verse. When Brahma was pleased by Kardama Muni, he said that oh, this is very important thing. That is, when the Guru speaks, you simply say yes sir. And that's it. Prabhupada is setting a standard. That's how a disciple should be. And then here, that's the point. So we should engage in the study of the scriptures, and in that way, one is purified by that. So we have study, and then support the study, we also have service. So austerities. So everyone should perform austerities. So Prabhupada here points out that in all disciplines, there is austerity. What are those different austerities? There is austerity of the body, austerity of the mind, and austerity of the tongue. So we discussed that elaborately we discussed in the Nectar of Instruction. So one has to control his tongue, body and mind. Okay. Now Prabhupada is making a mockery here. He says that if one doesn't mold his life following these restrictions, so he is called as the show bottle spiritualist. So we have discussed this. I'm not going to discuss more on that. We already discussed why it's called show bottle spiritualist. Show bottle spiritualist. You remember this example? Prabhupada speaks of show bottle. Sometimes in the pharmaceutical shop, it's only a show bottle. That's why Prabhupada started speaking this. There is really that specific medicine is not there. Only a colorful medicine is there. Label is there, but actually there is no medicine there. So from that, Prabhupada picked up this term, show bottle spiritualist. So outside they are showing like big sadhus, but internally they are just cheating with so many sense gratificated desires. So Prabhupada says, if there are restrictions, rules and regulations, people will not become attracted. Therefore, those who want followers in the name of religion, just to have a show only, don't restrict the lives of their students, nor their own lives. But that method is not approved by the Vedas. So this is the whole point. Vedic life means there is a restriction. There are the rules and regulations to follow. So that is why you see in some so-called spiritual institutions, so-called Gurujis, absolutely no restrictions. So you can see thousands of followers. Oh, you know what, there are so many Facebook followers, there are so many YouTube followers. No rules and regulations. You do whatever that you want to do. And also you can see some of the questions and discussions that they have. Really so horrible. Really to call it this, call the word stupid, Nothing more than that. All kinds of nonsense discussions. And then, I don't want to speak about it. It's really bad. And to the students asking questions to so-called Guru, and Guru giving answers that, you can do whatever you want to do. No problem. There are no restrictions. And he's trying to present himself like he's a Vedic follower. So if you just open any books, any code of conduct related from the Vedas, you can see wherever there is sense control is being discussed. First is sense control. Then you speak about anything else. So people are there are cheaters and cheated. That's all. So arjavam. Then he speaks about arjavam, simplicity. So one should be very simple and straightforward. So we already discussed. So simplicity means with respect to the dress code of conduct, the speech, the dealings, straightforward dealings. And also abiding. So one is humble, means abiding by the scriptures, and also his dealings are the dealings are based on the principles followed by the previous acharyas, or the trend that is set by our ancestors who follow the tradition. That is why in the pramana there is one other pramana called aitihya. In Tamil we call aidiham. Aitihya means there is a certain standards that is set by our forefathers, or by those who follow the strict followers of the principles of bhakti, and they have set some standards. We simply follow them, and it is very conducive for spiritual life. Because there are some so-called scholars, sometimes they question like this. They raise the question like, there is this word dhoti is not at all there in the scriptures. What is the proof that Krishna was wearing dhoti? All this, there's a simple proof. The great acharyas, they are giving descriptions. They have seen, and they are giving descriptions. So we simply follow that. So they look for some quote from some Purana and like that, So they misuse everything. So so we don't bother. So we simply worry from what we hear from Guru, Sadhu and Shastra in Parampara. Srila Prabhupada is a pure devotee. He says this is what we dress, this is how we speak, this is how the culture he has set a standard, and simply we follow. We have faith in the words of the acharyas. Ahimsa, non-violence. So Prabhupada, again he points, real ahimsa means not checking anyone's progressive life. You see, again and again he is repeating this point on ahimsa. The animals are also making progress in their evolutionary cycle by transmigrating from one category of animal life to another. If a particular animal is killed, then what happens? Then the body that it is supposed to get, it gets delayed. So you are stopping the progress in their path to lotus feet of the Lord. So it's very bad to engage in sinful activities. Satyam, this word means that one should not distort the truth for some personal interest. In Vedic literature, there are some difficult passages, but the meaning or the purpose should be learned from a bona fide spiritual master. That is the process of understanding the Vedas. If you do not understand something, you say, I don't know. Or you try to approach the bona fide people and try to understand the subject matter and present the truth as it is. You don't speculate. This is one of the very important principles to be understood. That's what Prabhupada is pointing out here. Shruti means that one should hear from the authority. One should not constitute some interpretation for his personal interest. That we have discussed quite a lot. So the bottom line principle is that in Parampara we hear and in Parampara we present. We don't change the truth. And then he says that we should be free from anger. Anger is a product of the mode of passion and lust. So one who is transcendently situated should check himself from anger. So we know, from anger it deludes us further. Loss of memory happens and we lose ourselves. So we should be careful how to use the anger. Then apaishunam, do not find fault with others. This is an important principle. Then Prabhupada clarifies it. He says, of course, to call a thief is not fault finding, but to call an honest person a thief is very much offensive for one who is making advancement in spiritual life. Yeah, if somebody is making a mistake, it is a mistake. And also there is a way by which you present it also. That culture is also given. But it's not that you remain silent, that you see completely a fault that is happening, but you should not find any fault. You should not be silent. But if it is something happening which is against the principles of Krishna consciousness, we should raise and we should try to understand. But unnecessarily, simply finding fault for no reason, that becomes an offense. Then Krishna speaks about modesty and he speaks about the determination. Modesty means remaining humble, also accepting the authorities of the previous acharyas, and determination to execute the orders of the previous acharyas, scriptures and like that. For example, we can take the example of Dhruva Maharaj, how much determined he was. Even when Narada Muni almost tested him actually. What is the point? It's better you go home. But still he stood. He said, no, I want to try. So similarly, in our practice of Krishna consciousness, we will have so many challenges. But we should stand. We should not give it up for some small disturbances. We should be determined to make our endeavors with patience and then continue in our Krishna consciousness. And then Prabhupada speaks about Tejas for the Kshatriyas, and then then he also speaks about Dhriti, that is also required for the Kshatriya to be one should be very vigilant, and then also he speaks about non-violence. For the Kshatriyas, when he should be non-violent, when he should be violent. Violence is required for the Kshatriya. He cannot just leave when there is a adharmic act that is happening. And then also there is a principle for a Kshatriya. If somebody falls at his feet and then asks for forgiveness, he must forgive, he must accept, and somebody surrenders. So for minor offenses, he can be forgiven. So proper points of that. Cleanliness, we have discussed enough about cleanliness. And then Nati Manita. This is again another important principle that is being discussed. How one should imbibe the principle of Trinadapi Sunichena. Even though one does not doesn't get a respect, still he should be humble and give respect to others. Then he says, it is the duty of the Shudras to offer respect to the higher class for the upkeep of the social order. So one of the important characteristics Krishna will also discuss in the 18th chapter is to accept the instruction of the other higher varnas. And also we can, in this Kali Yuga, Kala Shudra Sambhavaha, that is also there, that only by following certain principles one's qualities are exhibited. Now all these 26 qualities, we can see why Krishna is discussing all these qualities. We can see the discussion happened in the 12th chapter. There was a discussion again that happened in the 13th chapter. Krishna speaks about 20 qualities or items of knowledge which he is discussing. And again, also in the 14th chapter, before discussing about Mamchaya Vyabhicharena, Krishna speaks about the qualities of a person who is self-realized. Now again here Krishna is speaking, because these are the qualities that are actually present in the Supreme Lord. And when a devotee becomes pure, sufficiently pure enough, he exhibits all these qualities. And these Daiva Sampat is what a Jiva should aspire for. And all these qualities one exhibits by the same principle of surrendering to Krishna. Okay, I'll just continue with the next verse. So that's the whole point. Now if we see that we have seen all those qualities we just saw, you can, when you are peacefully reading, you can identify some of these qualities belonging to sannyasis, brahmacharis, grahasthas, vanaprasthas, then brahmana, kshatriya, vaishya, shudra, like that. Right there in the purport, Prabhupada is clarifying it. You can know. But overall, as practicing devotees, we should try to imbibe all the good qualities that is given here. So now let's move to the verse number 4. Okay. Now having explained about the quality of the Daiva. Now Krishna goes on to explain about the qualities of the Asuras. He speaks. The Lord now speaks the fruits which cause bondage. Now before, for those who came late, just I'll remind. So Krishna, Srila Vishnu Chakravarti points about two fruits. One fruit is fruit of liberation. In the previous chapter there was fruits. There was not much discussion on the fruits. Acharya is saying that the fruits are discussed here. So that one of the fruit is the fruit of liberation, another one is the fruit of bondage. So with the Daivi Sampat, he discussed the fruit of liberation. So Srila Vishnu Chakravarti points out that now the fruits of bondage is being discussed. Then Srila Baladevi Dibhushan Prabhu says that the Lord now speaks of qualities of Asura which cause hellish existence, he says. This will take you right, all these qualities which are going to be described, is the pathway to hell. Dambo dharpo vimanascha krodaf parushyam evacha ajnanam cha vijhatasya partha sampadamasurim. He says, what are those qualities? Dhamba, pride, arrogance. Dharpa is arrogance. Abhimanaha, conceit, the idea to deceive someone. And then krodha, anger, and parushyam, harshness. So these qualities belong to the demons. And also we will see Krishna will specifically discuss about pravritim nivritim chaiva. Now Prabhupada points out here, what does ignorance mean? He speaks that they do not know what should be done and what should not be done. They do everything whimsically according to their own desire, and they do not recognize any authority. Very clear symptom. Why? They all every time ask this question. Why? Specifically the Asuras. So they don't give a fig to Vedas. Or we can see here in Tamil Nadu there are so many atheistic demons who right royally reject Krishna, who right royally reject Bhagavad Gita. I'm sure you don't have this in any state where they promote Ravana so much. This is such a demoniac thing, They promote Ravana, and there is some hotel here in Salem also, what we call Hotel Ravana. They give child the name Ravana, Stalin, so many things. Okay, so that's the whole point, because they don't want to abide by any authority, specifically scriptural authority. This is the whole point. We'll see in this chapter, Prabhupada very clearly defines, Krishna defines that one of the quality by which we can identify who is a demon. They completely want to reject the teachings of the Vedas. These demoniac qualities are taken on by them from the beginning of their bodies in the wombs of their mothers. As they grow, they manifest all these inauspicious qualities. So another point to be noted here. So because we discussed, Sadasad Yoni Janmashu, So what kind of association you are having? Same consciousness is being built. So that's why you see when the mother is pregnant, traditionally we just encourage them to read Bhagavatam, read Gita, hear Krishna stories, have very auspicious discussions. So they should be helped to be in Sattva Guna. So all these things are very, very congenial for the child which is in the womb. Now the modern days people have no idea whatsoever, because the child right in the womb is hearing everything. And so this Sadyoni. So there is also, we can see there is two things, Kukata and Sukata. In the Bhagavatam also this word is very much being used. Kukata means all inauspicious kata. And Sukata means all very auspicious. So the Su and Ku, this word is used. So the more you expose yourself to the auspicious vibrations, the more the child is hearing. And there are so many examples, in the Puranas, which explains about how children in the womb, they develop good, all these auspicious qualities. Okay, I just point out one thing from the commentaries. This parushya means using rough language in front of others. We all have this experience. Sometimes we see people when they are very demoniac, the way they speak. Oh, that's why it is said that there is in Tirukural kind of a dharma. It is, I would say, kind of a dharma shastra, local dharma shastra again, wherein the Tiruvalluvar, he says that when someone speaks very harsh words, very bad, vulgar words, harsh words, the wound it causes, it takes time, lot of time to heal. But the wound, that is physical wound that one develops, it heals maybe in a week or so. When you speak very harsh words, bad words, it's very piercing. Okay. Text 5. This verse describes the differing results of the two sets of qualities. Daivi sampad vimokshaya nibandhaya surimata mashucha sampadang daivim abhijato sipandavah. The transcendental qualities are conducive to liberation, whereas the demoniac qualities make for bondage. Do not worry, O son of Pandu, for you are born with the divine qualities. Now, Krishna, after having explained the first 3 verses, the qualities of the divine or the Daivi Sampat, and also he pointed out in this previous verse, the quality of the Asura. Now he is foreseeing that what Arjuna will be thinking. Now I have to fight, I have to become angry. So what will be going on in Arjuna's mind? So remember, keeping that in mind, Krishna is speaking that. Now immediately you can see Prabhupada is, in the purport is addressing that point. See here? How Arjuna's involvement in the fight is not demoniac. He's addressing that point. Lord Krishna encouraged Arjuna by telling him that he was not born with demoniac qualities. His involvement in the fight was not demoniac because he was considering the pros and cons. He was considering whether respectable persons such as Bhishma and Drona should be killed or not. So he was not acting under the influence of anger, false prestige or harshness. Therefore, he was not of the quality of the demon. So immediately Krishna is clarifying, Arjuna, you are not of the quality of the demon. Because you are a saintly person. At the beginning of the first chapter we can see Arjuna was so much he's thinking. Prabhupada speaks about that he was, this is the quality of a devotee because he's seeing the welfare of the others also. What will happen to the wives of all these men who will die? There will be varnasana, all this he was able to consider. So Krishna says that there is nothing wrong in you are a divine person. Therefore he was not of the quality of the demons. For a Kshatriya, a military man, shooting arrows at the enemies is considered transcendental. And refraining from such a duty is demoniac. So on the other hand, if Arjuna did not fight, then that will be considered demoniac. Krishna turns it the other way around. Therefore, there was no cause for Arjuna to lament. Anyone who performs the regulative principles of the different orders of life is transcendentally situated. So that's the point. According to your dharma, you perform, act properly. But then you are properly situated. That's what Krishna is pointing out here. Okay, now Srila Vishnu Chakravarti in his commentary, he points out, it appears that I have the asuric traits which will lead to bondage in samsara. Arjuna is thinking like that. Since I desire to kill enemies by shooting arrows, and I'm thus filled with cruelty and anger. What a crazy person I am. Like that Arjuna is thinking. Then to comfort him, Arjuna is speaking this verse. To comfort Arjuna who was thus worried, the Lord speaks, do not worry. You are born with the Daiva qualities, O Pandava. For one born in the Kshatriya family, anger and cruelty during war are prescribed by the scriptures. To do otherwise would make you of asuric nature, possessing violence and other bad qualities. So this is what the point, so that we can see the great devotees, they possess all top qualities. Now, people in the modern age, they are trying to go for personality development and all those things. They're the person who is, I remember, when I was working before, I had to, the company arranged for some course, how you can be very effective in your productivity and your interpersonal skills with the customers and this and that. So there was one fellow who came and then, he was how you have to do presentation, how you have to smile, how you have to look at the audience and this and that. And then he was saying how you have to articulate the words and many things he was speaking. Then during the break, we saw that person, he's a chain smoker. Within half an hour, during the break itself, you'll go some 4 or 5 times. You'll just smoke and then come. What kind of a personality he is. And then what we will develop by associating with such person. Of course, it's for money, he's doing some job and everything. But here we can see, when we see the life histories of the great personalities in the Bhagavatam, Ramayana or Mahabharata or from the Gita, we see the qualities, or top qualities are mentioned. Thinking about the welfare of the enemies, can we think of this? In the modern world, we cannot even imagine this. These are the great personalities we are dealing with. And you can see Arjuna, he had such control over his senses. Remember when he was in the Indraloka, Mother Urvashi, she was attracted by Arjuna. She was tested, but he was so much control over the senses. And there is not in the heavenly world, there is no sin. It is not adharmic. But still Arjuna was so controlled. And he had, so there is so much glories is explained about Arjuna's qualities. That is what Krishna is glorifying him. So that's why he has chosen Arjuna to give this knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, you just do one more verse because this completes the section. Seeing that Arjuna's lamentation did not go away, the Lord began to describe the qualities of the Asura. Now, Krishna is further explaining, actually Arjuna here, I will tell you more of the demon's qualities. Text 6. Dvau bhuta sargau lokesmin daiva asura evacha daivo vistarashah prokta asuram parthameshrunu. O son of Pritha, in this world there are two kinds of created beings. One is called divine and the other demoniac. I have already explained to you at length the divine qualities. Now hear from me of the demoniac. So now, just one important point from this purport I would like to discuss. He says that there is no other criterion but obedience to the regulative principles of the scriptures. So what is the difference between the devotees and demons? Devotees follow the injunctions of the scriptures. Or, in other words, also you can say they abide by Vishnu. But the demons, they don't follow the instructions of the scriptures. They right royally reject the instructions of the scriptures. You can take all the cases of examples of Hiranyakashipu, Ravana. First thing what they want to do, they want to create disturbance to whom? The Brahmanas. Brahmanas are strict adherents to the Vedas. They immediately, the first thing they want to do is they want to disturb, because by performing of sacrifice and other things, then the society, people will become Krishna conscious. They don't want that. They want to stop that. So that means they are against the principles of the Vedas and the Vedic teachings. Okay, that's what differentiates the divine and the demoniac. Yes, so with that I'll stop here. Do you have any questions or comments? Questions, comments, realizations? I have one question from an old class before I discuss on that. Anything? Okay. So there was a question that came up on the WhatsApp group yesterday. The devotee asked, so previously in the 10th chapter, 31st verse, we had a discussion that when Krishna was explaining about the vibhutis, the question was about how Rama, you referred Rama to Parashurama. Is there any evidence for that? Yes, at the time only we explained that Rama refers to Parashurama. Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur in his commentary is pointing out that. Just for your reference, I'll just show that. Here you go. Of moving or purifying agents, I am the wind. Among bearers of weapons, I am Parashurama. He is suitable as a vibhuti because he is an Avesha Avatara, and because he is an outstanding jiva among those who have given powers by the Lord. Now this is the point. Lord Rama is the Supreme Personality of God himself. Here, the whole discussion is going on about the vibhutis. So when it comes to vibhutis, some of the powers are invested in another jiva. So that is why that the Rama that is referred to there is referring to Parashurama, not to Rama, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hope this clarifies. Anyway, I will just, since you asked for a reference, I will complete reading this reference for you. Padma Purana quoted in the Bhagavatamrita says, O Devi, I have recited to you the story of Parashurama, a Shakti Avesha Avatar of the Lord. And also it says, he took birth as an empowered jiva. The characteristics of the Avesha Avatara are also mentioned in the Bhagavatamrita. So that makes the difference. And what is the point that I said? Again, I'll repeat. Rama is taken as Parashurama rather than Ramachandra, since he is a jiva. A jiva can be a vibhuti, but not the Lord himself. Hope this clarifies. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. So tomorrow we will continue with the discussion on the demoniac qualities. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Bhagavad Gita as